Pat, and I'm 56 years old, live in San Marcos, Texas, and in 2010, September 12th, I was involved in a kayaking accident, and what had happened to me was it was a week where we'd had a lot of rain, and I typically kayak in situations like that because the river's flowing much better. And this particular day, I had a good friend of mine, Bobby, who's a lifelong friend, that had come to visit, and we were interested in kayaking a part of the river that we were not familiar with. And along the way, we had to cross a low water crossing. It was a bridge that vehicles drive across that in high waters it allows water to go over the top of the bridge, which it was that day. And as we were crossing the bridge, right before we crossed the bridge, I had fallen off of my kayak, and unbeknownst to me, there were pipes underneath the bridge. And as I fell off my kayak, I was calm and just felt like everything was going to be fine, and just get over the shallow part of the river and get back on my kayak. And as I'm dropping off the kayak and going into the water, I get about thigh deep, and it just feels like a giant hand grabbed me by the ankles and just jerked me under the water. And there was nothing I could do about it. The force of the pull was so strong I couldn't fight it. And as I'm pulled down, I thought maybe I was getting pulled into a washout under the bridge. And as I was being pulled underwater, I felt a bump on the back of my hands, and I recognized that as being a corrugated pipe, so I knew right away that I was inside of a pipe. And when that happened, I forced my hands up and forced my feet down, and I was able to stop myself inside of this pipe that was underneath the bridge. And when this happened, I was already about 8 or 10 feet underneath the bridge in the pipe when I was able to stop myself. And I looked over my shoulder, and it was just dark. It was just, no light at all that direction. And I was afraid that there might be barbed wire or metal post or logs or rocks, something obstructing the exit of the pipe. And I felt like my only option was to try to go forward where I saw the light, the way I'd come in. And so just with all the strength I had, I started pushing forward, tiny little steps, maybe 3-4 inches at a time. I pushed myself forward, and thinking that if I let go, I got trapped at the back of the pipe, that I wouldn't survive it. So I'm pushing myself forward, and the whole time this is happening, I'm praying for God to look after me. If I would die, that He would take me to heaven. I'm thinking about my children, my wife, and I'm just thinking about surviving. And in a situation like this, your senses become heightened. I could see tiny, tiny specks of dirt floating through the water and going by my head. I could hear everything. I could hear different sounds all at one time. I could feel all the water around me and on me, and everything slows down. It's like in slow motion. You have detailed thoughts in milliseconds. And so as I push my way forward, those are the three things I'm thinking about: is surviving, my family, and praying. As I get to the front of the pipe, I made it up all the way to the front of the pipe. I grab onto the outside of the pipe with both hands, and I try to pull myself out. But at this point, the force of the water is so strong at the front of the pipe, I can't get out of the pipe. I tried to push my head out, I tried to push my shoulder out, anything, and it's just not working. I couldn't get my body or any part of my body out of the pipe. And about that time, I saw my friend Bobby, his hand come through the water towards me, and his hand probably stopped about 1.5 feet above the pipe. He was on top of the bridge reaching down towards me. And anyway, I reached up and I touched it and I grabbed his hand, and there's no replacement. Nothing else feels or gives you the comfort that the touch of another human being does. It just instantly gave me hope, and I felt like, okay, this is all I need, just a little pull from Bobby, and I'm getting out of here. So I pulled Bobby's hand to pull myself out, and when I did, our hands came apart. And when that happened, I lost my grip with my other hand, and I was pushed back into the pipe a second time. This time I was only pushed back into the pipe about 6 feet, not quite as far as I was in the pipe the first time. And I thought, well, I know I can make it to the front of the pipe again. I've done it. I knew I could do it because I've already done it once. But the problem was, I thought, I've been underwater for a long time, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold my breath. And I started pushing forward. I had the same thoughts, just about survival, and the primary thought on my mind was my family, especially my children. And as I started pushing forward, I made it a couple of feet, and just like flipping off a light switch in your home, I went unconscious just immediately. But just prior to going unconscious, I just felt this, like a bubble is the best way I can describe it. Just a bubble surrounded me, and I just felt peace. And I knew no matter what happened to me, that my family would be taken care of, and that everything in the world was okay. And it was just a total sense of peace, and knowing that with or without me, that things would be fine. And at that moment, when I passed out, I went into a different realm, a different place. I was myself. I was totally conscious. Just had the same thoughts that I had on Earth, but I was in like the best way I can describe it was like being in almost like a cave. And but the sides of the cave were this soft, deep black, and the sides of the walls were like covered with felt or velvet. And instantly my first thought, and it's a conscious thought, just like you have here on Earth, is I just felt multiple, just thousands, millions of people, souls. I didn't see them, but I knew they were there. And it was just, I couldn't even tell you how many it was, but it was sensed a lot of other beings there. And immediately I had a conscious thought, man, you gotta be really bad not to get to come here, because I didn't feel like I'd been that good a person. And I was in heaven. I felt like I was in heaven. There was no sign there saying heaven, but I felt the love, I felt the forgiveness, I felt the peace. I knew that was the place I was at. And in front of me, probably at a distance of about 75 yards, there was a wall, and it was made out of blue stained glass, and there was a bright light behind it, and there was a hole in the stained glass, as if somebody had thrown a rock through it. It wasn't a perfectly round hole. It had edges to it, and there were beams coming off the edges with this bright light shining through the hole. And kind of looked like looking at a kaleidoscope, because the light kind of flickered and changed. And I knew I wanted to get to the light, but I couldn't go there at my own speed. I was just being drawn to the light very slowly. And during this time, there was no verbal communication, but I felt a sense of total love, total peace. I had no physical feeling of any body, of having a body. And I didn't feel like the sense of clothes touching my body. It was just like having my consciousness without having a body attached to it. It was just total relaxation that you don't experience here on Earth. And I felt this just clean, being forgiven, and a cleaning of my soul. As I pulled pull towards the light, I got closer, I recognized that the delusion of the light being like a kaleidoscope was figures, were people walking back and forth in front of the light. As I got closer to it, I tried to make out who they were. I never could, because the light was so bright behind them. All I could ever make out was silhouettes. But it was people that were walking back and forth in front of the light. And at that point, the next recollection that I have is my face going up and down towards rocks in the water. And at that moment, the first sensation I had was my friend Bobby's arms around my upper part of my stomach, lower part of my chest, and he was raising me up and down, and which was basically was effectively giving me CPR, and I regained consciousness and put my hands and feet on the ground and stabilized myself. And when I did that, Bobby just was in total shock and was kissing me and hugging me and telling me he loved me, and then cursing at me and yelling at me, and he was in total shock. But at that point, just immediately, once I regained consciousness, I knew that my life was never going to be the same. I knew that I knew where I'd been. I knew what I know. It's a knowing. It's not just a faith or a belief. I know that there was a heaven. I know that there was a God. I know I've been there. I know I'm going to go back. And I know that I'm here for a purpose.